Hey, it's Jordan with Status Coup. Delighted to be joined by Will. We are staying on this chemical bomb that has gone off in Georgia and seems to be going into Alabama as well. We're seeing from the EPA and Georgia's version of FEMA still kind of a nothing to see here narrative over a week later. But when I'm looking at what residents are posting, I think there's a lot to see here. And Will, you're one person I saw. You live in Atlanta, so a good half hour away from ground zero. But even Atlanta, people have been experiencing symptoms. Tell us kind of how you first found out about this. And it seems like your dog told you before anyone else.
Yeah, he sure did. He gets the award for doing his job. Yeah, the plume was reportedly coming over. My computer's going to sleep. Gotta stop that. The plume was coming over. Nobody really knew what time it was going to come over. But my beloved dog Jackson, we've had him for 2 years now, and he's not since day one. He's never gotten up in the middle of the night, which is unusual for a puppy. They have happy bladder and all that. But so then overnight that night, I believe it was Wednesday to Thursday, 12:45, he was running around the bedroom, and I could not calm him down. And I didn't put two and two together until that morning. But yeah, I mean, I got no sleep that night because he couldn't settle down. But it's because he smelled the plume. So
that says a lot about the power of dogs and animals, that he could smell that over a half hour away. And did your doctor say anything to you about the chlorine gas? Because it's interesting, the media seems to be reporting the chlorine, leaving out the gas word. Very, very different. But obviously we know chlorine gas, at high levels was used in war. I don't really know the true levels of chlorine, and it's clear to me it's not just chlorine in the air. What did your doctor say to you?
He said that exact thing. I did some research before I talked to him, and of course I found out that it was a weapon of war, and that's exactly what he told me. And interesting little subplot is that I love my primary care physician. He, in a past life, was, and hopefully I'm not giving up too much information, but he was a pool boy, so he had lots of personal experience with the effects of chlorine, not necessarily airborne chlorine, but I mean, he told me that his eyes felt like sandpaper and his lungs, felt clogged and all that stuff. So it wasn't just, me imagining things. He confirmed it on his end with his own experience. So
then you find out and you started having some symptoms?
I did. Yeah. I was in the middle of a kind of like a fall, normal fall allergy attack kind of thing. It was over the past couple of weeks. It was up and it was down, and then I got better, and then it spiked up. But then when the plume hit, and it was the same night that Jackson, my dog, got upset, was when I had another round of allergy attacks. And I immediately called my primary care physician and talked to him, and he said that it was the plume aggravated an already existing situation with my allergies, and it was terrible, like just watery eyes and scratchy throat. I have a 5-year-old at home, my son, and he had a sore throat that day that has since gone away. My really big concern right now is that some of these things are not going to present themselves right away, right? So right. It could be over 5 years, it could be 10 years, it could be 20 years from now. And so I want to know what everybody, EPA, what the feds are doing. We already know what Biolab is doing. They hired a crisis PR firm. So that's really helpful for those of us who are going through it. And I mean, my heart goes out to the people of Conyers, because they are right there at ground zero. They have, you know, they have to leave their homes. They have to leave their livelihood. And I see a lot of people understandably say, oh man, I would get the F out of there. And I wouldn't, you know, I'd be pack up my car and go. And it's like, it's not that easy. It's not that easy for people to just pack up from their routine and their life like that. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm just,
which is crazy because the CDC doesn't seem to be answering questions about the health effects. You had the Georgia's version of FEMA put out what I thought was a laughable, like, text alert pretty quickly after this. I don't know if you saw that alert they put out, basically saying, well, this won't really affect most of the people, which, what the heck does that mean? Here is what they said. They said, where EPA is monitoring for air quality, chlorine and related compounds, chemical levels are unlikely to cause harm to most people, which is kind of what does that mean, most people? And then you have, I will play this clip. This was from, I guess, the local Fox, but it seems that there's black stuff coming out of the air that people aren't getting answers for. Let me play this.
Rockdale County resident Kathy Breedlove has her dogs on a pretty tight leash.
They are not allowed in my big backyard, which is 3.5 acres.
In the days since a fire at the biolab chemical plant just 5 miles from her home, she tells Fox 5 she and her husband made a disturbing discovery on their property.
They talk about the air quality, but we don't hear mention of what these big black chunks of ash are.
A Breedlove says the chunks started showing up Tuesday, 2 days after that plume of black smoke cast its dark shadow over the area and a county-wide shelter-in-place order was issued. She says they were told the substance was hazardous and not to touch it.
We're told that EPA would contact us to come get samples and test them, but we haven't heard from the EPA.
So the obvious question is, if you have black stuff coming out of the air and they're saying not to touch it, why is it that by day you could go to work and you could be out and about, but then the shelter in places at night, those two things don't seem to go hand in hand?
No, they don't.
I want to circle back because you mentioned your dog. We could learn a lot about dangers from our animals. And there has been things going around about beehives basically being destroyed, about there being no basically animal sounds in rural Georgia, which is very unusual. Let me show you this clip. This is about a beehive, or a woman with a beehive that apparently the bees are pretty much gone, which is very troubling. Here we go.
I am about 34 minutes away from the biolab fire, or approximately 14 miles. And I've been watching my bees, my beehive, the last couple of days since the fire started. And we went from a full thriving hive to just a few sickly members. Went out to check them today. I was hoping that they would have survived if I didn't open the hive. If you don't know anything about bees seal up their hive with something called propolis that they make themselves to seal any cracks and holes, to keep the temperature consistent inside and to keep other bugs out. Well, as you can see on the ground, there's some struggling around on the ground. There's some struggling at the opening of the hive. Here I am opening the hive. I'm not wearing any protection because I don't have to.
So that doesn't look like a thriving beehive with bees swarming. And I also want to play this clip. I didn't realize at first, but somebody posted online basically pointing out how quiet it was where she lives when it should not be this quiet in kind of rural Georgia. Let me show you this.
Good morning from Conyers, Georgia. I still live here. Right now, we're being told to use our discretion at different parts of the day as far as whether or not to be outside, and that's very confusing. I can't tell you what to do, but I'm going to tell you who's telling me what to do. Let's take a ride. question, what did you hear? Matter of fact, what did you not hear? Ain't no birds outside. It's the morning time. Where they at? Where are the insects? Where are the squirrels? They've been absent for 4 days now.
And why this is important is we saw the same thing in East Palestine after Norfolk Southern blew up 5 chemical cars of highly toxic. Deer were all of a sudden dying, fish dying, birds. I mean, you name it. There was no fish in the creeks anymore. So to me, it just seems odd. Like on one hand, shelter-in-place order at night. They're letting people go to work. I talked to people who said schools you were allowed out for recess, which is troubling to me. Do you think this is a function of the Republicans in power locally, or a bigger issue than that?
I think it is. So our ire should always be bipartisan. That's my philosophy. Do I think that Republicans shoulder a large blame for these kinds of disasters? Yes, I do. Absolutely. That's my personal belief. I also, Flint should have been the tipping point. East Palestine should have been the tipping point. I don't know what the tipping point is going to be after we have, for example, Sandy Hook should have been the tipping point for gun control, and it wasn't. And I mean, I was watching those clips. I know, Jordan, you were trying to trigger me on purpose, but it was. I was like, I could barely stop from crying because it. I mean, I'm a single dad. I am in charge of. I'm in charge of the well-being of my son and my dog, and I take Jackson out, and I'm seeing dead bees everywhere. I saw a dead possum. Usually if I see a dead possum, it's roadkill. The possum I saw was on the sidewalk, just dead. I'm not saying that they're connected. I think it's odd that it's happening. I'm seeing it so much more after this disaster. And, then the logical question is, well, are our pets safe? Like, how do we know that our pets are safe? So I go back to my comment, like it is, how much longer are we going to take this? Disasters like Flint and East Palestine and all, there are other derailments that have caused similar disasters. And I mean, I have compared the biolab thing to a nuclear meltdown, and every day I look at evidence and I feel that is more and more true. It feels like we have a nuclear meltdown in freaking Conyers, Georgia, and everybody's saying, "Oh, this is fine. You could go out and play in the recess." Like, what?
So it just seems to me this is a chemical inferno that once the plume is out and the fire is gone, it's not going to be treated that way. And we should also mention, reporting's come out. I mean, there's been 3 fires. This is the 3rd fire that this plant has had in 7 years, I believe. But apparently it's one of the bigger employees in Rockdale County, and the government kind of looked the other way. But there's now obvious calls to shut this plant down. But who knew what when, as far as local officials? I don't even know if Governor Brian Kemp has even said anything about this.
I don't know either. I haven't. I try not to go on Brian Kemp's Twitter feed, but the first I checked, he was in the middle of the Helene disaster, and normally I would cut him some slack for being busy, but so I can't speak to whether he's said anything about it. But it is. Look at the track record. That's all I'm saying. He was kissing up to Donald Trump 2 days ago, or whatever day it was, yesterday even. I don't remember. The days of melding together. But he's not a reliable narrator. Let's just, that's the charitable way to put it. So I have been, memorializing all, because I can't call my doctor every day, but I have been memorializing my symptoms. I had a rash. I woke up with my eye was clogged this morning. It was just all of these things, and just be vigilant and demand accountability. Demand accountability from your state leaders. We have an election in a month. You can make your voice heard at the ballot box. My preference is to vote blue, no matter who, up and down the ballot, because 9 times out of 10, Democrats care about environmental issues more than Republicans. And also, let's advocate for creating some kind of political board or a governing board, a nonpartisan governing board that can effectuate change and policies and results for the victims of this disaster, of the disaster that is akin to a nuclear meltdown, so that people can, in 10 years or in 20 years, can seek some kind of relief, because we can't go through this again. We can't go through 5 Flints every decade. It's just no human should have to go through that. That's ridiculous. So
Absolutely. Thank you for taking the time. Hope your kid, your dog stay safe, and let's stay in touch.
thanks, Jordan. Really appreciate the time. Thank you.
Sure. Take care.